Welcome back to This is Van Color. These days, you cannot go on social media without being bombarded with conspiracy theories, shadowy elites, global plots, just asking questions. It feels like Canadians just love conspiracy theories, at least online, because there's so much of it. But what if I told you that there might be a conspiracy of Canadian conspiracy theories? Here to explain, a reporter and senior editor with the CHEK, Jen St. Dennis. Jen, hello. So nice to see you back on the show.
Hello, Mo. It's nice to be back.
So when we think of Canadian conspiracy content, the Triple C, what exactly are we talking about?
So I'm fascinated with this. I'm sure that you and I have both noticed the same thing as like longtime Twitter users.
Yes.
The social media.
I live there.
The social media platform that used to be called Twitter, now called X. Very different vibes since Elon Musk bought it in 2022. All of a sudden, there's just, all of these kind of, conspiracy sort of content, ideas about things being controlled behind the scenes. And it's these ideas that can't ever really be proved one way or the other. It's just become really, really common. And I think it was really supercharged by the COVID-19 pandemic.
So in a Canadian context, is it about COVID? Is it about the ostriches? What's the Canadian conspiracy content?
Yeah, there's some local BC ones for sure. And I'll talk about those in a second. But the main one. So I recently reported on this study. There's this really interesting kind of collaboration between a couple of universities, McGill and U of T, called the Media Ecosystem Observatory. And they study this kind of stuff. Okay. And they have a bunch of researchers who do these studies. And so they took a look at Canadian conspiracy content recently, did this really fascinating study, and they identified about 8 kind of common sort of like ideas that are flowing across the interwebs these days. So for instance, the stuff connected to COVID, like distrusting health information, distrusting vaccines, believing that the COVID regulations were all part of a government conspiracy to kind of control our lives. Really ranging towards, all the concerns about like SOGI and quote, gender ideology, this belief that even, any kind of acceptance of trans or non-binary people in schools is somehow like radicalizing your children and making them trans.
Right.
That thing. There's even like environmental ones where a belief that, wildfires are somehow being set on purpose, that they're arson, that it's all an attempt to like control our lives with like climate change regulations.
Okay, interesting.
So so those are a bunch. There's like also just the idea that I'm sure we're all you and I are probably familiar with the World Economic Forum conspiracy theory.
Yes.
This is the one that Pierre Poilievre will often kind of put out in his speeches, like just a little mention of it, and it often gets applause, and people are like, I know that one. This idea that the World Economic Forum is this shadowy cabal, and it's controlling our lives and controlling our politicians. So deep state stuff, and that the media and politicians are kind of in cahoots with each other,
right? And
so that you can't trust anyone. You can't trust what you hear.
So who is pushing this out? Who's creating it? Who's amplifying it online and on social media?
I think it's a mix of Canadian, like actual Canadians who are like real people. So the researchers for the study that I recently reported on, they didn't want to tell me who exactly it was. They actually found that it was really only a small number of accounts, like 100 social media accounts.
Just 100 accounts?
Yeah, that we're pushing out.
But it's so ubiquitous online.
I know.
You see it everywhere.
It's like the range of influence, how it gets spread, the algorithms are pushing it. So as I was saying, it's a mix of like real people. Like for instance, I would say Kat Canada is maybe an example that people might know. Like she's a real person. She makes videos. She often talks about, right now she's really on a lot of like Islamophobic content. A lot of this stuff about like deep state stuff and gender ideology she really likes. So that would be an example of like just a kind of a character online that people are often encountering. Sometimes it's non-Canadian. So there was a recent example of a bunch of like mostly US-based content creators and one Canadian, Lauren Southern, who it ended up were actually being or were allegedly being paid by Russia to like make all this content.
Oh, this was the Tenet Media
That's
scandal.
Right. And a lot of that content was actually really focused on Canada, on portraying Canada as this sort of like broken hellhole, where like people are doing medical assistance and dying all the time and all this sort of stuff. So
this is where my conspiracy comes in, because if it's just a small number of people or accounts that is pushing this content, but we see it everywhere, it has to be coordinated. There has to be some sort of, someone's in cahoots with someone to push it out, right?
Shadowy cabal.
Yeah, I'm falling in in the reverse, right? So, I mean, is there any indication that this is a coordinated attempt?
No, I don't think so.
Okay.
I think that there are specific, like the tenant media scandal was one thing that was very delicious for, I think, all of us in the media who are always encountering this kind of content, because it was an indication that, it was kind of being pushed out a little bit artificially, like, and this like link to Russia was really interesting. But when I was reporting on that, researchers were also telling me, like, don't just think everything's Russia. Like, the United States is also really influencing our politics a lot. So when we talk about foreign influence, we always think about China or India or Russia, but like the United States is the biggest foreign influence on our politics. But a lot of this stuff is from Canadians about Canada. So here in British Columbia, one idea that we've seen like pushed out a lot recently is skepticism that there was any existence of unmarked graves at residential schools, for instance.
Right.
We've seen the far right party, 1BC, just like focus in on this like ad nauseum, as if it's the biggest problem that British Columbians face in their lives. And with that, they've done a whole documentary, not only questioning the existence of unmarked graves at residential schools, but also suggesting that it's, a ploy from First Nation governments to get money.
Right. It's like pulling the thread.
It's pulling the thread, just asking questions.
Yeah.
Like, so that's an example of a really local very Canadian issue that really affects us here in British Columbia and especially Western Canada, that we've seen really pumped out across like local social media, like Facebook and X and all of that stuff, and with certain political actors really, really pushing it. Now,
really quickly, we know that most Canadians are not actually susceptible to conspiracy theories. We may enjoy kind of delving in or looking in, but is there an effect on our psyche by being bombarded with conspiracy theories all the time on social media? Yeah.
So that's the good news, is that a lot of us, even though we know about the conspiracy theory, the study actually found that it's a really small percentage that actually believes it, like something like between 13 and 20%. But the concern is that seeing this content all the time just kind of like over time just erodes your trust of these institutions like government, scientific experts, and news media. And that if you see it over and over and over again, it's just going to kind of like be a stepping stone to just eroding your trust in those institutions. So that's kind of the concern here, is that just like being exposed to it so much just has this kind of effect on you.
Wow, a dystopian way to end our chat. Jen, thank you so much for your time tonight.
Thank you.
Folks, that was journalist Jen St. Dennis. Find her work at thetyee.ca. Now, after some business, if you can scroll past the conspiracy theory slop on social media, you probably noticed a trend, a yearning for the 1990s. Was life, even in Vancouver, better back then? Fiona Forbes will take us back up next.